Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast is Art of Storytelling in English.
It's great to be here, and this topic, I have to say, is one I've been really looking forward to. We're finally getting to talk about something that is so fundamentally human.
It's interesting you put it that way. I was just thinking, we tend to put storytelling in this little box, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
We think, okay, that's for novelists or maybe for Hollywood screenwriters. But if you really think about it, it's more like the basic operating system for how we communicate.
That is the perfect way to describe it. An operating system, from an anthropological perspective, our ability to tell stories is what sets us apart.
Right.
You go back thousands of years to our ancestors huddled around a fire. Those stories weren't just, for fun.
It was a survival tool.
Absolutely. It was how you passed on knowledge. Don't eat those red berries, or this is how we hunt the mammoth. It was about transmitting wisdom, culture, everything.
And really, nothing has changed. The campfire is now a podcast or a YouTube video, but the core function is identical. We're just trying to make sense of the world by putting a narrative around it.
Exactly. And today we're looking at it through a very specific lens. We're talking about storytelling in the English language.
Which is its own universe, really. It's the global lingua franca. You have something like 1.5 billion people speaking it.
At least. And that scale is important because English is... it's a bit of a sponge, isn't it? It's soaked up words from German, French, Latin, countless other languages.
Which makes it incredibly rich and expressive.
It does. But it can also be a minefield for someone learning it.
Yeah.
So many nuances, so many idioms.
Before we jump into the nuts and bolts, the plot structures and all that, I want to stay on this why for another moment.
Okay.
A lot of our listeners are learning English for very practical reasons. For business, for science. So why should they care about being a good storyteller? Isn't just conveying clear information enough?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But our brains are just not wired that way. If I give you a PowerPoint slide with a bunch of bullet points...
My eyes are already glazing over.
Well, what happens in your brain is that two small areas light up. The parts that process language. That's it. You get the data, but you don't connect with it.
That's just processing.
But, and this is where the neuroscience is just incredible.
Yeah.
If I tell you a story, if I start with, the winter wind was howling and the coffee cup was burning my hands, something different happens.
What's that?
The sensory parts of your brain light up. The part that feels cold, the part that registers heat. It's as if you're there. They call it neural coupling.
Neural coupling. So my brain literally starts to sync up with yours.
It mirrors it. And what's more, a good story can trigger the brain to release oxytocin.
That's the empathy hormone, right?
That's the one. It signals trust and connection. So if you're that entrepreneur pitching your startup or that teacher trying to explain a complex idea, you don't just want them to understand you. You want them to feel it. You want that chemical connection.
That has to be why Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech is so timeless. He didn't just give a list of demands.
He absolutely did not. He could have. He could have stood up there and read a policy document. We demand legislative action on points A, B, and C.
And it would have been forgotten in a week.
Instead, he told a story. He used metaphors, like a check coming back marked insufficient funds. He painted these vivid pictures of the red hills of Georgia. He invited everyone into a shared dream, a shared story.
You're basically transferring an entire world from your mind into someone else's.
It's the closest thing we have to telepathy, and you see it everywhere. Think about a first date.
Oh, the job interview.
Right. If you just list your accomplishments, I studied here, I worked there, it's a resume.
It's a performance.
But what if you tell a funny story about a time you messed up? A childhood mishap.
You instantly become a real person. You're vulnerable.
And that vulnerability is what creates a connection. And we have to acknowledge this, for someone learning English, that can be incredibly intimidating.
It's terrifying. I've heard so many learners say they feel like they lose their personality. They're funny and quick in their native language, but in English, they feel stiff. They're constantly worried about their accent, or they're searching for a word and the moment just passes.
It's the imposter syndrome of language learning. But here's the good news, and really the whole point of this deep dive. Storytelling isn't some kind of innate magical gift.
It's a skill.
It's a skill. It's like engineering. You can learn it. You can build it piece by piece.
Okay, so let's start laying the foundation. If we're building a story, where do we begin? What's the blueprint?
The blueprint is the plot. It's the skeleton that holds everything else up. Without a solid plot, your story is just a formless blob.
And in Western storytelling, there's a very famous structure for this, isn't there?
There is. It's called Freytag's pyramid. Gustav Freytag was a German novelist who analyzed plays and stories and found this common pattern.
I remember seeing a diagram of this in school. It's basically a triangle, a little mountain that the story climbs and then descends.
That's it.
But isn't there a danger there? If every story follows the same formula, doesn't that get predictable?
It's a valid concern, but I'd say think of it less as a strict formula and more like a set of physical laws, like gravity.
Okay.
It just describes how tension tends to work in the human psyche. We like a setup, we like a complication, and we crave a resolution. Once you understand the rules, you can start to bend them or even break them. But you have to know them first.
Fair enough. So let's walk through it. And to make it concrete, let's invent a character. We can build her story as we go.
Great idea. Let's call her Mia.
Mia. Okay, what's her deal? Where does she live?
Let's put her in a classic setting. She's a young artist trying to make it in New York City.
Perfect. So step 1 of the pyramid, the bottom left of the triangle.
That's the exposition. This is all about setting the scene. It's the before picture. We need to know who Mia is, what she wants, and what her normal life looks like.
So exposition for Mia might be, she lives in a tiny, overpriced apartment in Brooklyn. She works a dead-end job as a waitress to pay the bills. And at night, she paints. Her big dream is to have her work shown in a real gallery.
Excellent. You've established her world, and crucially, her desire. We know what she's striving for. Without that, there are no stakes.
Okay, so her life is stable, if a little frustrating. What happens next?
Next comes the inciting incident. This is the spark, the event that kicks the story into motion and disrupts her normal life.
So an email arrives. It's from a very prestigious gallery in Chelsea. They saw her work online and want to see her portfolio.
Oh, that's good.
But there's always a but.
Always.
They need to see 20 fully framed paintings by the end of the week, and she's completely broke.
And there it is. The inciting incident leads us up the slope of the pyramid into the rising action. This can't be one single problem. It has to be a series of escalating complications.
So it's not just Mia needs money for frames. That's not a story.
No, that's an inconvenience. The rising action needs to build pressure, so what else could go wrong for her?
Okay, so she tries to borrow money from a friend, but the friend just lost their job.
Ouch. Good.
She finds a cheaper framing shop, but it's all the way out in Queens, and they have a 2-week backlog.
The clock is ticking.
Her boss at the restaurant makes her work a double shift, so she loses a whole day of painting time. And on top of all that, she starts to feel sick.
You're really putting poor Mia through the ringer.
Hey, you said we needed rising action. We need to see her struggle.
You're right. That struggle is what makes us root for her. And it all builds and builds until it reaches the peak of the pyramid. The climax.
The point is no return.
Exactly. The moment of maximum tension where the protagonist has to face their biggest obstacle head on and make a crucial choice.
So it's Friday, the deadline day. She somehow managed to get the paintings framed. She's in a taxi racing to the gallery, but then a torrential downpour starts.
Classic New York.
The taxi gets a flat tire. She's 10 blocks away. The gallery closes in 20 minutes. What does she do?
This is her moment.
She can give up. Or she can grab these huge, heavy canvases and run through the pouring rain.
And she runs. She has to. She bursts into the gallery, soaking wet, hair plastered to her face, paintings barely protected by some cheap plastic she found. That's the climax.
But after that peak of adrenaline, we start going down the other side of the pyramid.
We do. This is the falling action, the immediate aftermath. The tension starts to release, and we see the consequences of the climax.
So the gallery owner is there. He's about to lock up for the day. He sees this drenched, frantic artist.
He could be annoyed, or he could be intrigued. He looks at the paintings.
And he loves them. Maybe he even loves the story, her dedication. He offers her the show.
Perfect. That's the falling action, and it leads to the final point at the bottom right, the resolution.
The new normal.
The new normal.
Yeah.
Mia isn't the same person we met in the exposition. She's a celebrated artist. She's proven to herself that she's resilient. Her world has fundamentally changed. The story arc is complete.
When you lay it out like that, it feels so satisfying. There's a real sense of closure.
There is.
But for our listeners, the challenge isn't just coming up with these plot points. It's connecting them, making them flow.
This is such a critical point. It's often what separates an intermediate English speaker from an advanced one. A beginner will tell the story like this. Mia was sad. She needed money. She ran to the gallery.
It's very choppy. It sounds like a list.
You need what I call linguistic bridges, transitional words and phrases that guide the listener from one event to the next.
So instead of then she ran, you'd say,
You'd use a word to signal the shift. Suddenly, the taxi shuddered to a halt.
Hmm.
Or you could show a cause and effect relationship. She was out of options, therefore she decided to run.
I think however is one of the most powerful words in storytelling.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pivot. She thought everything was going to be okay. However, she hadn't counted on the rain. It instantly creates conflict.
So I have an idea for a practical exercise for anyone listening.
I'm all ears.
To practice this, don't try to invent a whole new story. That's too much work. Take a story you already know inside and out.
Like a fairy tale.
Exactly. Like Cinderella. And retell it, but focus only on using this structure and these transition words. Cinderella lived with her cruel stepmother. As a result, she was very unhappy. One day, an invitation to the ball arrived. However, her stepmother forbade her to go.
That's a fantastic exercise. It takes the pressure off of being creative so you can just focus on the language, on the architecture of the story.
Okay, so we've built the skeleton, the plot, but right now it's just a sequence of events. We need to give it a soul.
We need the living elements, we need characters, and a setting.
Let's go back to Mia. We said she's an artist, but that's a label. It's not a character. How do we make her feel like a real person?
This is where we get to the most famous piece of writing advice ever. Show, don't tell.
We've all heard it a million times, but what does it actually mean in practice for an English learner?
It means you provide the evidence and let the audience draw the conclusion. So I don't tell you, Mia was a very determined person.
That's a label.
Instead, I show you. Even after working a 10-hour shift, Mia would come home, drink a black coffee, and paint until 3 a.m., her eyes burning with exhaustion, but her hands steady.
So my brain processes that and concludes, wow, she's determined. I did the work, so it feels more earned.
You're engaged. You're a detective, not just a spectator. In English, this means using strong verbs and specific, concrete details instead of lazy, abstract adjectives.
So instead of saying the villain was evil, you'd say,
he never made eye contact, and he had a habit of tearing the wings off flies while he spoke.
Okay, that's much more effective. And terrifying.
And speaking of villains, let's talk about the antagonist. An antagonist isn't always a person with a handlebar mustache.
Right. It's just the opposing force.
It's whatever is standing in Mia's way. It could be an external antagonist, like a rival artist who tries to sabotage her.
Or it could be societal. The art world is elitist and she can't break in.
Or, very powerfully, it can be internal. Her own crippling self-doubt could be the biggest antagonist of all. The voice in her head telling her she's not good enough.
As long as something is pushing back against what she wants.
There have to be friction. No friction, no fire. No story.
Okay, so we have our character, Mia. Now, where do we put her? Let's talk about setting. I think a lot of learners just treat setting as a backdrop. The story is in New York. End of description.
And that's such a missed opportunity. The setting should feel like another character in the story. It should have a mood, a personality.
And how do we do that in English?
Through the 5 senses. We default to sight all the time. New York has tall buildings. But what does it sound like?
It sounds like a constant siren in the distance, the rumble of the subway under your feet, a dozen different languages being spoken on one street corner.
Yes. And what does it smell like?
Roasted nuts from a street cart, garbage in the summer, the perfume from a fancy department store.
Now, you're not just telling me it's New York. You're putting me there. You're creating an immersive world. That's the goal.
And the vocabulary for setting is so culturally specific, isn't it?
Hugely. If your story is set in a quiet English village, you're using words like cobblestone, thatched roof, rose garden. If it's in Tokyo, you're talking about neon, skyscrapers, bullet trains. The words you choose ground the story in a specific reality.
So we have our plot, our character, and our setting. Now let's talk about the engine that drives it all forward. We touched on it with antagonists, but let's dive deeper into conflict.
Conflict is the lifeblood of story. Real life is nice when it's happy and calm. Stories are incredibly boring when they're happy and calm.
We want to see the struggle.
We want to see the character tested. We want to see them overcome something. Linguistically, you can really amplify conflict by choosing powerful, active verbs.
Can you give me an example of a weak verb versus a strong one for conflict?
Okay, weak would be, she did not agree with her boss. It's so passive.
It's a statement of fact.
A stronger version would be, she clashed with her boss.
Sure.
Or she challenged her boss. You can feel the energy in those words.
Or for an internal conflict. Instead of, she was sad, you could say.
She battled her despair. Wrestled is another great one. She wrestled with the decision. It turns an internal state into a physical fight.
And underneath all this clashing and wrestling, there should be a deeper meaning, right? The theme.
The theme is the soul of the story. It's the answer to the question, so what? What is this story really about?
So for Mia, the theme might be about perseverance, or the idea that commercial success isn't the same as artistic integrity.
Exactly. But you have to be so careful not to just state your theme.
Right. You can't end the story with, and the moral is, never give up.
Please don't. That feels like a lecture. Instead, you let the theme emerge naturally through character actions, through dialogue, and especially through symbolism.
Okay, explain that. How would we use symbolism for Mia?
Maybe throughout the first half of the story, she keeps painting the same subject over and over, a bird trapped in the cage.
Ah, so the bird is her.
You never say it, but the audience understands. And then, after the climax, after she gets her show, her final painting is of the cage door wide open, and the bird is gone. The theme of liberation is shown, not told.
That's really powerful. It trusts the audience to connect the dots.
Which is always more satisfying for them.
Okay, I think it's time to get into the really granular stuff. The part where we open up the linguistic toolkit.
Let's do it. Vocabulary and grammar.
I want to start with a quote from Mark Twain because it's perfect for this.
I think I know the one you mean.
The difference between the right word and the almost right word is the difference between lightning and a lightning bug.
It's so true. One is a spectacular, powerful force of nature. The other is a tiny little flicker.
So let's apply that. Let's look at action verbs. We use generic verbs all the time, like walked.
Mia walked to the gallery. It tells us nothing other than her mode of transport.
So how do we make it lightning instead of a lightning bug?
You ask, how did she walk? What was her emotional state? If she was nervous, maybe she paced. If she was exhausted after her shift, she trudged. If she was confident and happy, she strolled or sauntered.
Trudged is such a great word. You can hear the heavy footsteps.
And notice if you say she trudged, you don't need to say she walked slowly and heavily. The verb does all the work. It's more efficient and more evocative.
But this leads to a common trap for learners, doesn't it? The thesaurus trap.
The thesaurus is a dangerous tool in the wrong hands. A student looks up the word big, and the thesaurus gives them gargantuan.
So they write, I ate a gargantuan apple for lunch.
And it sounds ridiculous, because gargantuan has a very specific connotation of being monstrously, unnaturally huge. You have to understand the word's feeling, its nuance, not just its dictionary definition.
So how about we talk about idioms? I feel like they are the secret spice of English.
They are. They can make your storytelling sound so much more natural and fluent, using phrases like, it costs an arm and a leg, or he spilled the beans.
But there's a huge caveat there, right?
A massive one. You have to know your audience. If you're speaking to an international group of English learners, a lot of idioms will just cause confusion. They can be very culture specific.
So use them with care. Okay, let's talk grammar. I can feel some listeners wanting to tune out, but this is so important for storytelling.
It's the hidden machinery. Let's start with active versus passive voice.
The classic writing rule, active is good, passive is bad. The dragon scorched the village is better than the village was scorched by the dragon.
And for the most part, that's true. Active voice is more direct, it's more dynamic. The subject is doing the thing. It moves the story forward.
But the passive voice isn't just wrong, is it? It's a tool.
It's absolutely a tool.
Yeah.
You use it when you want to emphasize the object of the action, or when the person doing the action is unknown or unimportant.
Give me an example.
In a crime story, the window was broken sometime after midnight. The focus is on the window. We don't know who broke it. That's the mystery. The passive voice creates that mystery.
That makes perfect sense. It's about shifting the camera's focus.
Exactly. And then there's sentence variety. If all your sentences are the same length, your story will feel monotonous, like a robot is reading it.
You need a rhythm.
You need a rhythm. You mix short, punchy sentences for impact. He stopped. The room was silent. He ran. That creates tension.
And then you use longer, more descriptive sentences to slow things down.
He gazed out at the sprawling, mist-covered valley, remembering a time when the world had seemed so much simpler, so full of promise. It forces the reader to take a breath and reflect.
All right, now for the really fun part. Section 5, painting with words and voice. This is where the artistry comes in.
This is about using figurative language, similes and metaphors.
The basics. A simile uses like or as. He was as brave as a lion.
Right, and a metaphor makes a direct comparison. He was the lion in the boardroom.
The metaphor feels stronger to me.
It usually is. It's more confident. And then you have things like personification, giving human qualities to inanimate objects.
The wind whispered through the trees.
It's so much more evocative than the wind blew. Whispered implies a secret, a gentleness. It sets a mood.
Now let's talk dialogue. This is where so many stories feel fake.
Because the writer makes the characters speak in perfect, complete sentences. Real people don't do that.
Real people interrupt each other, they use slang, they trail off.
And they use contractions. This is a huge one for learners. Your character should say, I'm, don't, and can't. If they say, I am, do not, and cannot all the time, they sound like robots.
And what about dialogue tags? He said, she asked.
Keep them simple. Said is basically invisible to the reader. Your brain just skips over it. If you start using fancy tags like he ejaculated or she opined, it pulls the reader out of the story.
It's the author showing off.
It is. A better way is to use an action beat instead of a tag. Instead of get out, she said angrily, you write, she pointed to the door, get out. The action shows the emotion.
Show, don't tell, again.
It always comes back to that.
Let's touch on pacing and rhythm. We mentioned sentence length, but how else can we control the speed of the story?
You can use cliffhangers, not just at the end of a chapter, but at the end of a paragraph. She opened the door and saw something that would change her life forever.
You can't stop reading after that.
It creates a compulsion to know what happens next. You can also use repetition to create a certain rhythm or beat. He ran and he ran and he ran. It emphasizes the desperation, the endlessness of the action.
Okay, section 6. This is a big one for our global audience. Context, culture, and audience. A story isn't told in a vacuum.
Not at all. And the way you tell a story can change dramatically depending on your cultural background.
Okay.
Let's compare, say, typical British and American storytelling style.
Okay, these will be generalizations, of course.
Of course. But generally, American storytelling tends to be very direct, optimistic, and action-oriented. It's the classic hero's journey. There's a problem, we work hard, we win.
And the British style?
The British style often relies heavily on understatement, irony, and a lot of self-deprecating humor.
So if an American character achieves something great, they might say, I did it, I'm the best.
Whereas a British character might achieve the exact same thing and say, well, that wasn't a total disaster, was it?
And if you don't understand that cultural context, you'll completely misread the tone.
Completely. And it's not just about Britain and America. Every culture has its own storytelling traditions. Indian English, for example, often has this wonderful, slightly more formal, poetic quality to it.
So the takeaway for the listener is, know your audience.
Know your audience and be respectful. Avoid stereotypes. The way you'd tell a story in a business presentation in Seoul is going to be very different from how you'd tell it at a barbecue in Australia.
Let's talk about those contexts. What about telling a story with data? A lot of our listeners have to do that for work.
Data storytelling is a crucial skill. You can't just show a chart and say, as you can see, sales went up. It's boring and people forget it.
So you have to find the narrative in the numbers.
You have to. You give it a structure. For 6 months, we were struggling to enter the European market, the exposition and conflict. Then we launched our new marketing campaign in April, the inciting incident. By June, sales had skyrocketed by 30%, the climax and resolution.
You've turned a data point into a victory.
You've made it memorable.
Okay, we're in the home stretch. Section 7, refinement and mastery. Let's talk about common mistakes and how to fix them.
We've talked about telling versus showing. Another huge one is using cliches.
At the end of the day, thinking outside the box, it was a dark and stormy night.
These phrases were once fresh and clever. Now they are so overused that they've become meaningless. They're dead metaphors. Your brain doesn't even create an image anymore.
So what's the fix?
Create your own original comparisons. Instead of her eyes were like stars, say her eyes had the same cool, distant light as stars. It's specific. It's fresh. It makes the listener actually think.
What about practice exercises for people who want to get better?
One of my favorites is to narrate your own day. As you're making breakfast, tell the story of it in your head.
He bravely faced the empty coffee pot, a true test of his morning resolve.
It sounds silly, but it gets your brain into the habit of seeing the world in narrative terms. It forces you to practice verb choice and description on low-stakes material.
And I'd add one more thing. Record yourself.
Oh, that's a tough one. Nobody likes the sound of their own voice.
It's painful, but it's the single best diagnostic tool you have. You'll hear every single, every time you say like. It's brutal, but it's how you improve. So finally, let's talk to the non-native speakers listening right now who are still feeling nervous, still feeling that imposter syndrome. What's your advice?
My biggest piece of advice is this. Your accent is not a mistake. It is not a flaw to be corrected.
It's part of your identity.
It's a feature, not a bug. It tells the world that you've lived in more than one place, that you know more than one language. It adds character to your voice. So own it. Don't apologize for it.
And start small.
Start small. Tell a 1-minute story to a friend. Join a public speaking group like Toastmasters, where everyone is there to learn and support each other. You just need to build momentum.
We have gone through so much today.
We really have. From the psychology of why stories work to the nitty-gritty of grammar.
We took our character, Mia, on a full journey using Freytag's pyramid. We learned how to build a world with sensory details.
We talked about the difference between lightning and a lightning bug when it comes to choosing words.
We looked at how culture shapes storytelling and how to tell stories in different contexts, from business to social media.
It's a whole workshop in one deep dive. But all the theory in the world doesn't matter without practice.
Absolutely. So here's our call to action for you. Right now, think of a small memory from your life.
It doesn't have to be traumatic. The time you tried a new food, the first time you saw the ocean, a funny conversation you had.
And just try to structure it. What was the before? What was the little moment of conflict or surprise? And what was the outcome? Just find that simple arc.
And then tell it to someone. Or just record it for yourself. Take the tools out of the toolkit and start building.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. It truly helps us continue to make these deep dives for you.
We love hearing from you, so please leave a comment and let us know what story you decided to tell.
We want to leave you with one final thought. Storytelling isn't just about becoming a better public speaker or writer. It's about connection. Every time you tell a story, you're opening a door and inviting someone into your world for a moment. And in a world that can feel very disconnected, that's not just a skill, it's a kind of superpower.
Beautifully put.
Thanks for listening to the Learn English Lab. Now go tell your story.
Goodbye, everyone.